Hi, it's 2 a.m. I hope you're doing well. Um, so I just wanted to talk about a little bit more about the sermon this morning. And the first point that I made was that God's presence came down. And in Micah chapter 1, it talks about how when God's presence comes down, he melts the mountains like wax, and the water's just before him. And it's just an intense description of God's presence coming down because of the sin. And it made me think about another time whenever God came down and his presence was here, and that was when Solomon dedicated the temple. It's in 2 Chronicles 7. Remember, David's the one who got all the stuff ready, and God said, no, 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 you're not going to do it. Your son can do it. And so Solomon dedicates it, and he made this temple lavish. I mean, fabulous. But even then, God said, do you think that anything you can do is actually big enough to hold me? Is actually good enough to house God? And so there's this idea that, how do we do that? How do we have a place for God? And that's interesting because, in our hearts, as believers, we believe that God comes into us, or the Holy Spirit comes into our hearts, or not our hearts, maybe as much as our souls, and it speaks the truth we need, and these kind of things. Um, and so we think about that God coming into us, and then we think about his presence coming into the temple. And let me read it to you here in 2 Chronicles chapter 7. When Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offerings and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. And the priests could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled it. When all the Israelites saw the fire coming down and the glory of the Lord above the temple, they knelt on the pavement with their faces to the ground, and they worshipped and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, He is good, his love endures forever. And the king and all the people offered the sacrifices, the cows, the sheep, the goats, all that kind of stuff. And they continued to say, his love endures forever. And so I thought about that. I mean, and as I'm thinking about these guys face first down on the ground, I will be honest, my my thought went to Wayne's World, little Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, and the "we're not worthy," and they just kept doing that, and it was kind of a funny thing back in the early '90s. And but to think that these people are like, we're not worthy, God. You're good. Your love endures forever. Like, this is intense. It is, I don't say too much, but it's more than what we can handle. And that's what God's presence does. It brings it. It's more than we can handle. And yet, he is good and his love endures forever. And so I don't know where you are right now, but I know that if you're asking God to step into the situation, you need to be ready for that presence to come. And that means getting ready yourself to be in that prostrate position and say, you are good and your love endures forever. And I can't even look at it because you are such an amazing God. And he is an amazing God. And he has an amazing plan for us and for this community and for this church and for wherever you are. So grab a hold of that today and remember, he is good and his love endures forever. And when God steps in, big things can happen. So just a thought. Until next time.